Hi, I'm Shelley of Hanging by a Thin Thread, and this is June 2nd. I am coming to you from the Kansas City area, and this is the place where we get together and talk about my knitting, spinning, weaving, crochet, and any other fiber activity that I get up to. It's been a few weeks since we've talked, and the last time I was finishing up in episode 56, I was finishing up the Penguono project that I was making for my mother. And I will report that she loved the sweater. It fit her. She tried it on. I didn't get a picture of her wearing it yet because it is really getting to be warmer now. We've had a very long, nice spring, but it's finally starting to warm up now. So it's not something she's going to be wearing immediately, but it does fit, and it's something I think that she will enjoy wearing. She was really happy to get it. Since I didn't get a picture of her in the sweater, though, her birthday was just the other day. She had an 85th birthday. And I did get a picture of her the day we went out together. We went thrifting together, which we love to do. And we found some good finds during the thrifting process. But we also stopped the next day at Gus's Fried Chicken, where we got not only a wonderful chicken lunch, but we also had a root beer float. Instead of a piece of birthday cake, she wanted a birthday float, birthday root beer float. So that's what we got there at Gus's. And this is a picture of her enjoying the root beer float. Now, I'm going to start talking about my stash inventory because that's been a big focus of mine for quite some time. I've been wanting to make a vest for myself as a next project, but I wanted to also finish up that inventory stash. And so I've been working on it both for the yarn and the fiber. Surprisingly, it did not take nearly as much time as I thought. I'm now down to entering my final 4 entries of fiber. And what I'm inventorying, just to make it clear, is any of my fully, any yarn that has the yarn label and is a full skein of yarn is what I'm inventorying. I'm not inventorying the little tiny bits and bobs of leftover sock yarn or any of that. That stuff without a label that's just a small amount, I'm not inventorying. And same thing with fiber. I have one bin downstairs of fiber that is mainly stuff I have dyed in the past and I'm using for my drum carder. So there is one bin of that downstairs. I'm not inventorying that because it's just shards of different fibers and colors all down there for my creative play with the drum carder. So those are not in the inventory. But other than that, I have inventoried all my yarn, and I now realize, after inventorying it and inputting on Ravelry with the picture and all the information, I realized that I don't actually have a large inventory of everything. I have quite a bit of shawl and fingering weight sock yarn. I have different colors, one-offs of this and that for different projects like that. But I don't have hardly any winter or fall sweater quantity of yarn. I have one amount that I have that is from a sweater I Need to Frog from 10 years ago. Well, from 2013, 15 years ago. But other than that, I really actually don't have much sweater quantity of yarn for the fall and winter. I do have a few sweaters worth for spring and summer, which some of that I'd totally forgotten about. So I am learning what I actually have by doing this yarn inventory, and I'm really, really happy that I chose to do it in Ravelry because it didn't take nearly as much time as I had thought. And one thing that it did for me was it allowed me to take my knitting queue on Ravelry, and I was looking for a vest pattern. So I had my queue up, and it allowed me to match that queue with yarns that I have in my stash that I could make those vests with. And so right about the time I didn't know what vest I was going to make, I got a ping on my email from Andrea Mowrey of Andrea Renee Knits. She had a flock vest knit along that she was starting on June 15th. And it was a darling striped vest, summer vest. And the knit-along was gonna run for 2 months. So I thought, oh my gosh, that's what I need to make. And I was gonna go out and buy some yarn for it because I figured I probably didn't have anything that would fit for that. But I did a yarn matching, like I told you could do on Ravelry. And I don't have the screen up to show you, but I can read you where it is. So if you want to try this for yourself, if you do enter your yarn into the inventory, then when you go to your queue where you put the things you want to make, so I entered this new pattern into the queue after I bought it, and what it came up for me right away under suggested yarns, she suggests the Ampersand Fibers Garamond worsted weight yarn, okay? But in my stash, right under the suggested yarn, it says in my stash, and it has 6 ideas. So I clicked on that, and lo and behold, there was some yarn that came up for me that I had just purchased in a clearance at my local yarn store, because my local yarn store is moving. So they had some alpaca yarn. I don't know if I have a full skein of it here. Well, I don't think I have an unwound skein yet, but it's a taupey. It's called taupe, and it's the alpaca DK paint yarn, and it is let's see who it's with. But anyway, this is a closeout kind of yarn, Plymouth. It is the Plymouth Yarn Baby Alpaca DK paint, and it is in shades of taupe, some gray, and some red, kind of a winey red color. And so I thought, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that, because by using this yarn, it's a little light, but not too bad. I thought it would actually be better for me, since I am doing a summer vest that I can wear to Fiber U in mid-July. Alpaca can be kind of warm, but I thought, you know, if I make it in a DK weight, it won't be bad. It won't be as heavy as if I made it in worsted. So I did the yarn swatch, which I'll show you here. This is my swatch. I decided to do to use that yarn along with another yarn it suggested in my stash, which was a fingering weight yarn, but I held it double. And it's a Lion Brand 1856 cone of yarn. So this tool really helped me match these yarns. And a friend of mine was actually making a vest by combining the red and this, which we got, like I say, on clearance from our yarn store. But by entering those right away into my Ravelry program, I was able to immediately match those. And also there were some other ideas it gave me as well. But I really like this feature, and for no other reason, if you are wanting to immediately see how to use yarns in your stash, this suggestion and prompt that it gives you on the queue, I suggest you put in the queue of the patterns you want to make and use it to see if there are some yarns that might not be in your stash that you can use before you go buying new yarn. The other thing it does, I will say now, don't count on it exclusively, because I found other yarns I could have used in my stash by going to my stash page. So it selected 6 of the ones I had, but there actually were other ones that by combining, like the red yarn I used is fingering weight, the 1854 Lion Brand. This normally wouldn't have worked because it's fingering weight, but I doubled it, and I actually wound it double onto a ball. And that way it worked. And also a gray yarn that I had in my sock yarn stash that is partly cotton and partly wool. So that's what my stripes are composed of. But I was able to get started on my vest. And so that's what I decided to make. The vest I'm going to be wearing to Fiber U, if I get it finished, is this vest. And it's called the Flock Vest by Andrea Mowrey. I am now finally to the part where I can start knitting the body itself. I've got the 2 front pieces done in the back. And so I really think this will be cute. And it's something I'll probably wear more in the fall but I can also wear it, you know, to this fiber ute. It'll be perfect because it's very chilly in their venue. Okay, so that's what I'm currently working on, and I'm making good progress on it. But I was really happy to be able to tie it into, you know, the stash and use some of what I had on hand, and I got a really good deal on that yarn. So I was happy to be able to use something I already bought rather than to get more yarn. Now I'm going to let Ruby out here because she wants to say hi. So Ruby wanted to come out and say hello. She's been watching me through the screen door, and she's really happy the weather is getting warmer and she's not having to wear as many sweaters. This is her little harness, but you like it out here, don't you? So Ruby has not been here for a while, so she's saying hi. It's really nice out, isn't it? So the next thing that I am knitting, and this is something that I'm not focusing on quite as much because I'm trying to get my progress on my flock vest, but I also am working on the Park Davis Stashbuster Duster. And that is because I took a class on it. You want to get down a minute so I can show on my duster. With this one, I am making pretty good progress. Need some blocking because you're using different yarns from your stash to make this. And this is the right front panel. So I'm getting pretty far because this is a very long duster. So I'm getting pretty far on this one panel. But there's another panel, obviously the left panel, and then the back that I will be doing. But I'm really having fun combining colors. I'm using a lot of pinks, a lot of fuchsia, a lot of copper, some golds, and purples. So these are colors that I really enjoy wearing, as you know. And so I have a lot of this kind of color scheme in my stash. So I have this whole big bag here, this big bag of potential yarn that I'm using. And I do have to occasionally, I find that occasionally some yarn that I thought would work in it ends up being too thick because you're using more than one yarn held at a time. And so I really like this pattern. This is the Park, if I said Davis, it's Park Williams. Yeah, Park Williams. I don't know why I want to call her Park Davis, but Park Williams. This is her pattern. And if you remember, several weeks ago, I took a class with her on combining your stash to, you know, to use up your stash and combine it in making a project. And she has several different patterns that use this technique. And you also can still buy the class if you want it to participate in the recording of the class. I think that MDK, Modern Daily Knitting, still does have this recorded that you can sign up and take the class if you want to. So that's that. But I'm also working on that. That is another project that I have on hand. Let's see what else. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Oh yeah. I want to mention that I've been a little bit stressed thinking, you know, I should be more productive and get more done. And I'm finding myself in retirement doing a lot of different things, but feeling drawn in different directions. For example, we did get a lot of our gardening started. And I'm not a gardener by nature, but we wanted to plant some tomatoes and other things this year. And so I did get started on that. But we've got a lot of things that have been drawing my attention away from strictly knitting. And I felt a little bad about how slowly I was going. But then I happened upon one of the podcasts I listen to frequently is Snapdragon Life. I think it's called Snapdragon Life. Her name is Jane, and she's in the UK. She's a little bit younger than me, but she definitely is at the time of her life where she's reassessing things. And she not only writes and talks about, she has a blog too, but she not only writes and talks about her knitting, but she also talks about her gardening and her natural dyeing and several other interesting topics to me. The most recent one she was talking about was that she's been making some, doing slow knitting, because she's not about trying to quickly knit up everything she can. She's trying to slowly make her own wardrobe, and that's a process I've been in for quite some time, as many of you know. But she is taking it very, very slowly, and she's, enjoying that slow process of making. And she's not on any kind of treadmill to get things done quickly. And it occurred to me that I sometimes do feel pressure by having this podcast, and as slowly as I work, I often do feel pressure to produce something and to have something to show you that I've finished. And so I just want to let you know that, if you're one who is not a fast producer yourself, just know that it's okay to slow down and enjoy the process. That Snapdragon Life, Jane, reminded me of this. And she's lately been on she dispels a lot of the assumptions I have about knitting and about making the slow making process. She is, someone who is comfortable in her own skin, and she has been lately exploring making vintage knitting patterns, even though I've always shied away from them because I figured, well, those won't fit me. I remember in the 50s and 60s and 70s, I wasn't alive in the 50s, but all the time I was growing up, I always knew that the vintage patterns, which were then the current patterns back then, that they were in smaller sizes, like generally 34 and at most 36. So I kind of pushed aside the idea of using vintage knitting patterns because of the small size constraint. But Snapdragon Life, Jane, is not worrying about the size. She's modifying the patterns in a way that she will be able to use them in her own size and not be concerned. And she's adapted them mainly by playing with the needle size and the yarn weight that she's using. Like, instead of, if a pattern is written for fingering weight yarn, she might be using DK or even worsted weight yarn and knitting on a larger size to get a larger size garment. And so it occurred to me, I need to think about that as well, because I've always just shut down in my mind any possibility of using vintage patterns. And this opened up my mind to thinking about maybe doing that. And this Stashbuster Duster is a prime example. I'm making it larger than what the designer has it, because for me, when I started knitting it, I felt like the side panels were too small, kind of like they were in that other vest I knit earlier in the spring that I ended up ripping out because I felt it didn't really cover my front panel area as well as I would like. It was kind of, really skimpy. So the same thing with this Stashbuster Duster. I knew that could be an issue. So I purposely cast on more stitches, used a larger needle, and so far I'm really liking this. I think this panel, I'll show you here. This panel is the panel. It's going to fit me. The one that she has, the width with the number of stitches, would have been a lot smaller, but this is going to fully cover me in a way I'm going to feel comfortable in. And so I adapted even this pattern to better fit my size. And so you can adapt patterns. Just remember that. You don't have to go with just what they say. And if you want a roomier, more comfortable pattern that will be more size inclusive, you can adapt these things. And that's what I'm in the process of doing and thinking about doing, is to relax more in my knitting, go slower. As I do the process of knitting, I'm asking myself, is this a garment I'm going to be enjoying wearing? Is this something, regardless of how much time it takes, taking the time to make it right and make it fit is more important than just zipping out a lot of things, like a production line. I don't need to do that. I am retired now. And so you know, this isn't just my hobby anymore. This is part of my life. And in retirement, I'm focusing on living a better quality of life and reducing the stress that I used to have in the work world. So I am enjoying it when I step back and remember that I'm not on a production line anymore. I don't have to, you know, do this. This is not what I'm doing for a living. It's what I'm doing for fun. And so I'm just reminding myself of that this week, and things are popping up in my life to remind me of that fact. I want to mention, it's a little bit off topic, but I always wear lipstick. You may know I tend to be a makeup and lipstick wearer. And I had been wanting to find a lipstick for summer that wasn't the bright pink that I normally wear. I like pink, but I wanted a softer, more muted pink that would go with my coloring more. Because I am a summer in the, at least I believe I am, I'm a summer in the color scheme analysis that a lot of people have been doing lately. And I found on one of the color analysts that I watch, her name is Perfectly Seasoned. She's a young woman who also happens to be a summer. And she recommended, because originally she had recommended an Ulta, I think it was a MAC lipstick called Syrup, for those of us that are summers. But it was pricey at $21 a tube. I wasn't going to buy that. And here, lo and behold, a few days ago, she came out suggesting that if you didn't want to buy the syrup, that there is a Revlon cream, CREME cream, 463 color, called Softly Mauve. Is it Softly? Yeah, no, Sassy Mauve, sorry. These are my stronger reading glasses. Sassy Mauve. And it is this really pleasant, nice, soft rose color, mauve. So I'm really enjoying wearing this, and I think it looks more natural on me. Let me know what you think. But if you would like to get it, I bought it on Amazon, but you can get it. It's Revlon color number 463. And I think it's a very pleasant, soft pink. For those of us that can't wear the brighter pinks as well, I thought this was really nice. And the blouse that I'm wearing right now, I got at the thrift store when my mom and I were out birthday shopping the other day. I just like the subtlety of this, and even the earrings and the necklace I bought at the thrift store. But I think it's kind of, in a way, a more fallish look, but but I felt that it went rather well for right now in the mood I'm in. And then this is the knitting bag, the little cute tapestry knitting bag we found at this thrift store also. I think it's really pretty. So, you know, can't beat that for $12, a nice project bag. Now, one more thing I'm going to talk about before we wrap it up, and that is a wonderful book that actually it's part of my book club that I read recently, called The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. This is not a brand new book. It was first published in 2024, I believe. But our book club was assigned to read this. And it's a historical novel, which I love historicals. It's a historical mystery of sorts, but it's really a character-driven novel. And I absolutely love it. It takes place in the 1950s. And this is a time period that wouldn't normally appeal to me. For some reason, I was born in the 60s, and I just never felt the 50s were a very interesting time period. I thought it was pretty boring. But actually, Kate Quinn, who's a wonderful historical author, she explores this time period, and there was so much going on under the surface that I had no idea about. There was a lot going on under that, their clothing they wore and everything else was, the women were so well dressed and had their heels on and their, stockings and in their hats and so forth. But this period had so much going on, and it had the McCarthy Red Scare going on, and the hearings, and there was just a lot going on under the surface. The communism, the threat of communism, everyone accusing everyone else of being communist. There was a lot of things going on under the surface. And this delightful story is about a group of women who are in a boarding house, a women's boarding house, and they start off with their lives being very separate, but each chapter in here is a very, very long chapter focusing on each character. And so by the end of the story, you have everyone's story weaving together, and the women living together start having a dinner club every Thursday night where they contribute a meal and share a meal together. And it starts to bind them together into a real family of women with very interesting stories. And there's extremely deep characterization if you like deep characterization. I found the story delightful. I loved, it has recipes in here from the time period. And the author's husband actually wrote the recipes. I heard an interview where she discussed the recipes. And so she suggests music of the time that is being played in the background. She gives ideas of songs and musicians that were popular back in the 50s. And it just immersed me in a whole experience of feeling like this was a time period that I had really taken for granted. And after reading this book, I want to read a lot more about the 1950s. So I hope that you might check it out. I found it a wonderful read. I've read some real clunkers lately, and I was getting pretty discouraged because the last 3 or 4 books I've read, I hadn't wanted to share with you because they weren't good. I didn't want to put anybody down, any author, but I really found some clunkers for a while. And so this is one I can highly recommend. If you read it, let me know. Well, that's all we have for now. I hope you have enjoyed spending some time with me. I do look forward to finishing the flock vest, and hopefully next time I am on here, I'll be able to show it to you as a finished object. But I'm not going to rush things. I'm really going to slow down and try to take to heart the fact that, there is no rush. I'm not on a time clock anymore. And even if you have a job in your very busy time of your life, it's good to remember that our crafting time is our time to regain our inner peace and to enjoy the process itself. So even when I have something that doesn't turn out like that vest from a few months ago, I just need to let that go and enjoy the process itself. I did enjoy the process of working with that yarn. And the good news is I had ripped out that yarn, so in the future I'll be able to use it for a project that works better for me. But, I'm glad I am working slowly and enjoying the process that I am on. Also, I want to mention, just for those of you who are spinners, I just realized that TourDeFleece is coming up July 4th through, I think, the 26th. But it definitely starts on July 4th, which will be interesting because that's a holiday. But anyway, just wanted to let you know so you can start preparing if you are a spinner. Always remember, love what you're making and wear what you make.